Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But it is a TV Tuesday. And we are, in fact, covering the 5th episode of The Wheel of Time, Blood Calls Blood, a very serious title. And we are incredibly excited because today, helping us break that down, is Fiction Fans Podcast. Sarah and Lily are joining us again. But for people who don't come into all of our book discussions, if there's anyone out there who's just tuning in for the TV stuff, could you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Well, I'm Lily from Fiction Fans, which I think is all of the information you already have. I am a almost complete Wheel of Time blank slate. I have heard some conversations from this crew, and that is about it. So I am going to be that energy in this episode.
And I'm Sarah, also from Fiction Fans Podcast, obviously. And I have read all of the books and watched the episodes that are available and complained to Lily about some things. So that's how she has been introduced to the Wheel of Time.
It's really not fair because all I know about Wheel of Time is what Sarah complains about, which is probably not a super accurate picture of the series.
Mostly what you know is the spanking.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, thank God we haven't had one of those scenes yet. Let's hope we don't have any of those scenes.
Cut that out of the TV show.
I'm very curious.
I mean, it's been pretty PG-13 plus a little bit. So I feel like spanking for any reason is weird in 2021.
I feel like, I mean, Rafe, the showrunner, is a fan of the books. And I think that he has enough respect for the readers and discernment that he's not going to just put in spanking because he knows that that's really not, I mean, yes, it's accurate to the words of the book, but it's not really all that accurate to, I think, the themes that Robert Jordan was trying to convey.
I would love it if they added that to a consensual sex scene as like a wink wink.
Like if it's a consensual sex scene.
That would be okay, but the way that it's often in the books is like, okay, the author is a creep, but that's all right.
Right, but that's their way of incorporating it into the show without being horrifying.
Right. And I do think the show, like Sarah said, like Raph has been very respectful. Brandon Sanderson's involved and Robert Jordan's wife, Harriet. And so I feel like everyone kind of knows what gets kind of made fun of or talked about in the books that are problematic. So I'm hoping that they will move forward with that. And there seems to be some discourse with things such as in the first episode with the Layla character, like not everyone agreed with it. There was some fighting over it. So, but Sarah, could I ask what are some of the things you've complained about over the first 5 episodes?
I actually haven't complained about the show that much. I was not that impressed with the Layla stuff. I respect his comments, and he did a Reddit Ask Me Anything where he talked about that. And I respect his viewpoint, but I still disagree that it, I don't think that it worked because it just ended up being fridging.
Yeah.
Although I did see a post on Twitter about how there's a quote later on in one of the books where there's like one of those bubbles of evil and Perrin's axe is attacking Fail, and he has a line about how horrible it would be if his axe hit her.
Okay.
And I feel like that could be really impactful given what happened in the first episode.
Right. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
In context.
Whether or not that will go anywhere, I don't know, but
I think we both have agreed about the Layla stuff. So I'm glad that you're actually enjoying the TV series and have little to complain about with the book series. But Lily, so far, how are you enjoying your Wheel of Time experience?
Well, I really liked episode, I think it was 4, but that's because there's one plot line that I care about.
And what is the one plot line you care about?
Lan and Nynaeve.
Okay, you're a fan of theirs?
Yeah.
yeah.
that they're basically, I mean, individually, the fact that there is some romantic tension in there, I'm all for, but that's not why I'm into those plot lines. They were just the two most interesting characters, and unfortunately, they put them in the same plot line. So now all of my interest is in one place.
That's amazing. What do you like about Lan? Because like Lan's not always a fan favorite.
Really? Well, I guess I don't know what he's like in the book. I'm really worried I'm going to put my foot in my mouth by saying like, I love this character.
No.
Going to go, oh no.
Lots of people love this character.
Don't worry.
There's only one character that you would do that for, and that's Gawain.
Yeah. Some others that like Laura and I aren't a huge fan of at this point, 10 books in, but
she who must not be named.
But no, I don't think you're like saying anything terrible by saying you like Lan the most, and it's the TV show and this is all you've ever experienced, so no one can take issue with your opinion. So
well, I actually think all of the warders are pretty interesting. Just they're in such a situation, right, between these powerful women in a society that's not exactly matriarchal, and so sort of where do they stand with that? And also it's a situation where we're being able to see men have emotions, which I always really enjoy in media. And so like seeing their relationships with each other and with their Aes Sedai, and then some sort of, you know, queer characters in that whole thing, like that's absolutely my favorite part. And then we get Lan mixed in and Nynaeve, who's so far been a very cool person.
He is pretty great in this TV series. I agree. I keep using the word intimate. You're seeing a lot of different intimate relationships, and I don't think that's always portrayed on television. Like usually intimacy is squarely left for romantic relationships.
Yes.
And that is not a lot of these relationships, but they're still very close, and it's nice to see rendered on TV effectively.
I also think that that's one area where the show has really done a lot better than the books, because we don't, with the exception maybe of Moiraine and Lan, we don't really see any of the warder relationships in the book. Well, I guess we have Rand, but that's a whole other thing.
There's also like later on, like Elaine and Brigitte and everything, but
but it's I feel like it's really not developed in a way that makes us care about how the warder bond affects both the Aes Sedai and the warder, whereas here you really get a much better look at that, and it also foreshadows some things that happen later on in the series really well, I think.
For sure.
I definitely agree, especially in this episode. So it's
yes.
So should we jump into the plot? Or Lily, you said you might have a couple of questions for us?
Yeah. So, okay, full disclosure, I watched the first episode and then just walked away for like 2 weeks, because why would I ever want to watch more of this show after that?
That's amazing.
So I really need to know how much, like, I'm very curious how the show is pacing based on the, like, compared to the books. So for the first episode and then through to the 5th episode.
So like it's all still mostly covering the first book, but they've made changes to bring like other parts of the books together. So in the books, lots of people have issues with this pacing because they're like, it's too fast, but also a ton of the first book was like traveling from town to town to town.
A lot of the first book is very slow.
And so like you meet the Tom character in episode 3.
Was that the Bard?
Yeah, that was the Bard. And he was in the original book, he was at the start of the novel. Like he had visited their town and he decided to leave with all of them. And so my theory, and we talked about this in the 3rd episode, is they brought him in later so you didn't have to keep introducing characters over like in one episode, and to like kind of give him a little bit more of a very dark, broody, like older man vibes. And so they kind of changed that portion of it. They also like hit that broken down city way later in the books, like after they've been traveling for a while. And so they separate them pretty early on in the TV series versus the books. And then in the first book, you never get to Tar Valon. You actually go to a different city. So they've been making changes around that. So you're getting to the White Tower way before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I did misunderstand. I realized, or I had known that they were doing the show, we'll say quote unquote faster, but I was just sitting there thinking, if this content in the first episode was an entire book, I can't imagine how anyone gets to book 2. I mean, all we have is the Beastmen, which are a fantasy Warhammer 100% ripoff. I don't know what they're like in the books, but
I mean, they're
who designed those?
They're basically orcs.
They're basically orcs in the books.
Well, now they're basically Warhammer fantasy Beastmen, so maybe that's an upgrade. I don't know.
Well, and like the books, there's a whole lot more world building, I would say, that like takes longer because it's high fantasy.
Right.
So it's like Tom, when he and the boys like escape on a ship and they're there for a couple days, and he like teaches them how to play the flute and how to juggle. And so then when they're traveling from town to town, trying to get to where they're supposed to like meet up with someone, you have them traveling to inns and learning how to like make money for themselves. And they're also like the dark friends we saw in episode 3. There's a lot more dark friends, and they're like all chasing them down from town to town. So you're like, they're trying to run away and escape a lot of the time. So all of that stuff got cut out, which I would argue wasn't exactly necessary to a TV show for more than an episode.
Well, I love the Trollocs were cool. The fantasy elements have been fun, and we have been getting them more. It's hard for me to not compare this to Game of Thrones, right? There's a lot of high school drama that I don't care about, and they throw some fantasy nuggets at me to keep me interested. I kind of wish it was the Nynaeve show, and then every other episode was just like National Geographic about this world. Like, that's all I want. I don't actually care about the other characters.
David Attenborough comes in to narrate every other episode.
Yeah, this is the Trolloc.
You've literally created Laura's favorite show ever. Like, if you made the Nynaeve show with National Geographic where she got to see animals from time to time, she'd be set for life. Like, you've just become her hero.
Trollocs at night.
And I think they're the Tinkers. They were super cool.
We love the Tuatha.
Very little with them. I mean, we got to see them do their thing, which was very cool. But I really just want, like, this is their culture, and this is like, right? Like, that's what I want.
If you listen to parts of the audiobook, you will get lots of what their culture is.
I need a super cut where it's just the world building. I think that's actually what I want out of Wheel of Time.
There is an encyclopedia.
There is an encyclopedia.
Maybe I'll read that instead of the series.
Sarah, do I have everything right on like stuff they've changed in the novels and everything? Am I missing anything?
I think so. I mean, you are actually fresher on the earlier novels than I am, I think. Okay. And you've also spent a lot more time covering them than I did, because I haven't done a podcast about every book, multiple episodes. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, mostly they cut out a lot of extraneous stuff and have really condensed a lot of the traveling.
Yeah.
To make it go a lot faster, which personally I think works and makes sense. I know that some people are not as happy with it as I am, but
oh my god,
some people really enjoy horseback riding.
Oh, also, like there's way more subterfuge in the books, and we're not revealing on these bonus episodes who the Dragon Reborn is, but there's like so much more subterfuge in the TV show, than in the books on who is going to be the main protagonist. So like you're learning a lot more of everyone else's backstories, because they have their own things that they're going to do in the novels. But in this, it's much more like something's going on with everyone. What's going on? So there's a little bit more mystery, which also is a lot more fun than just being like, well, I know what's going to happen at the end of this. So.
Yeah, I think it provides a hook for people who aren't who aren't book fans to continue watching.
Yep.
Because if you know who the Dragon Reborn is from the very beginning, why bother?
Right. Exactly. Okay, so we're gonna break down the episode. Guys, feel free to jump in whenever you feel like it. We enter on the Aes Sedai bearing the green Aja warrior named it was like, it's not Katsuyane, because that's just a name in my head, but it is, I cannot remember her. Kareni, I think you are correct. Yeah. And along with all the other people who were lost in the previous battle to Logain and his men. And her warder is taking care, and he removes her ring And then he's comforted a little bit by Lan.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the rings. Okay. Are they the source of power, the focus of power, or just a signet ring?
They're the symbol of power. Like they're the symbol that they are Aes Sedai who have like been raised to the point where they can call themselves Aes Sedai.
And sometimes they can like have increased power if they have a certain like ring or token or something like that.
Yeah, but that's also a change. The Aes Sedai signet rings are a change from the books where they wear shawls to denote what Aja they're in. And here you can see it by the color in their ring.
The color of their ring and most of their clothes, which I'm wondering, it's just like because white cloaks are running around searching for Aes Sedai, and it's like, look for someone who's in a monochrome color palette.
I feel like that's true in the books too, though. I mean, it's not very practical.
Yes. Well, they do talk about how like not everyone does the monochrome colors because like you do have to hide from the white cloaks, but in this show, I'm like, everyone's just wearing the color of their Aja, just like.
Well, to be fair, we're seeing most of the Aes Sedai in one camp concentrated.
That's true.
And I feel like that's a safety in numbers thing, right? The white cloaks seem like bad dudes, but I don't think they could take on an entire camp of Aes Sedai.
And that's kind of the point with them where they're like doing stuff behind the scenes. So it's very much on brand for them to, but I'm just like, when he like stops Moiraine in the forest, I'm like, she's entirely blue. This is a huge red flag, but that's neither here nor there. And I will note that they asked the mother to welcome them home. So they worship a mother. We smash cut to a month later. Leandrin is leading them with Logain in tow, and they hit Tar Valon. You find out Moiraine doesn't feel comfortable there, and she likes to travel. She feels most comfortable traveling with Lan, and they know Nynaeve keeps with the warders at dinner, but Lan says it's because she's worried about Stepan, who still grieves his lost Aes Sedai. And they hope to find the children there. Rand and Mat are traveling. Mat is not looking great, and now he's yelling at children, which shows a significant change in his personality. And Rand is worried. He also recognizes a mountain in the distance near Tar Valon, and this is the first time you see Tar Valon itself. They enter, and they're kind of overwhelmed with how big it is. Rand is enjoying himself, like buying food, and Mat is kind of just being the Debbie Downer and refusing to eat. And this is the first time I clocked us hearing the phrase blood and ashes, which was very exciting. I noticed that too,
because I was like, oh, they said it finally.
It's like the curse Lily in this. They always say like blood and bloody ashes.
Or they say like light.
Yeah. So I was excited about that. They go to a place that Tom recommended. Rand doesn't want to go to the White Tower immediately. He kind of wants them to like hold on. He's very concerned with Mat because he still is curious if Mat can channel like Tom suggested in the last episode. But he claims it's due to how they look. Mat is worried that he killed the family in the last episode as well. And he asks Rand for reassurance, and he swears that he could never have killed the little girl. And he maintains that it's the Fade that did it. And he says that Tom and him both saw it. He's like, Tom is dead. So Mat's not doing great right now.
Okay, so the Fae and the Eyeless are the same thing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
They're called
by many names. Myrtle,
Fade, and Eyeless. And the Eyeless is more used in the TV show, I think, to like connote what a Fade is, because you don't hear it as often in the books itself. Moiraine is keeping Nynaeve in the warder's quarter to keep her away from trouble, because she says that if they found out who she was and how powerful she was, they're going to bring her into the tower and make her a novice immediately. And then it's like impossible for her to get out of it. She'll have to start playing political games. And Moiraine says she's watching for all of Nynaeve's friends. And Nynaeve is like, but are you going to actually tell me when they get here? And
Moiraine was like, duh, bitch. Like, let me finish a sentence.
Well, and at this point, she Moiraine notes that despite her power, she's like way in over her head with Aes Sedai because they're all trained in political subterfuge. And Nynaeve is like, well, if I'm so powerful, maybe they shouldn't underestimate me, and maybe they should fear me. And then like Moiraine just looks at Lan and he leaves the room, and she's like, I get it. You're actually just scared because you just touched the one power and you realized how small and insignificant you could be like around this. And you also have to question like how good you are in standing to other people around you. Because if you remember the first episode, her mentor got shunned from the tower, and now she finds out that she's this big, powerful being to them. And she's like, you may wonder if you could ever go back. And the truth is, like, you can't. You're changed forever. So, and then we cut over to the Tuathalan, who are traveling with Egwene and Perrin. Perrin noted that they don't use weapons, but they let their dogs hunt. And Aram says violence is in us all. The way of the leaf isn't denying it, it's accepting it. And Egwene comes up and she's like, you could tell Egwene's kind of having fun with the Tinkers. Like she's a little bit lighter. And she's happy that they made it to the White Tower. But suddenly the White Cloaks arrive with the claims of the false dragon. It's the same questioner as before, and he sees them. The Tinkers refuse to give them over, and they all band together, arm in arm, to stop the White Cloaks. Aram makes a run with it with Egwene and Perrin, but he is hit, and they are captured. He also notes during this time that the White Cloaks won't kill the Tinkerers. So that's a very, I don't know why I keep saying Tinkerers. It's Tinkers, but I just keep adding another syllable.
It feels like there should be another syllable there.
Right? Like it's Tinkers. Then we cut over.
Add like an apostrophe in there, something very Jordan of it.
That would be very Jordan. Just add something to add it. Randall Thor. Rand is in the library. He's like loving on books. He notices the Crothan cycle, which is also like highlighted so often in these books. Then he sees a beast that he's very scared of. And the guy introduces himself as Loyal. And he says that he is an Ogier. And so many humans are afraid of him. And he just came from a steading. He also confuses Rand for an Aiel man at this point, and noting that red hair is one of the few indicators of an Aiel. And Rand is like, I'm not from the Aiel. I'm from the Two Rivers. And he's like, oh, an Aiel man from the Two Rivers. You're odd. I like oddities. And they kind of talk about Egwene because Rand loves Egwene, and Loyal calls humans frivolous and notes that they age quickly. And then the false dragon arrives and he's being paraded through the streets. So Rand wants to leave and Loyal's like, wait for me. I just gotta pack up. And Rand's like, I'll see you out there. And
I think it's very interesting, the vibe you're giving. So I didn't catch his name, but I have heard the name Loyal before.
Yeah.
Fan fave.
I'm aware of this. I definitely got the vibe that Loyal was maybe playing into the bumbling scholar a little bit more, and definitely knowing that Bran is in over his head and trying to go along with him in order to maybe help him out. I don't know. That was how I read it or heard it.
I could definitely see that read. I guess you'll just have to keep watching to see, or you could just be done from this episode and never watch another episode of Wheel of Time.
No,
I think the thing that I will mention about Loyal, because this isn't like super spoilery, but that his appearance in the books is described as like being very tall and having long ears and being a little more of the appearance of like an animal beast type figure than he appears in the show. And I think that's just a budgeting issue. So they did what they could and made Loyal the way that he is in the show. And I think it was good for what it was. And the actor is really good, I think. But
I think that the actor is great. And that you're right, it is a budgeting thing. I read an article in, I don't know, Vox or something, where Rafe was talking about, well, we just didn't have the budget to really do like the CGI or the VFX for a character like this if we wanted him to be integral to the plot and the cast. But he's also very much not how I pictured Loyal. So that was kind of jarring for me.
I do think it's very jarring. In the books, Lily, to help, he's often mistaken for a Trolloc at first glance. When you do a second glance, he just looks kind of beast-like, and he's definitely not a Trolloc. But he's supposed to be much bigger and much more like imposing to people, and then be very soft-spoken. So it is supposed to be like a very interesting thing. Right. So I can see how some of that gets lost with like the height difference and him just being like a regular man standing next to a very tall ginger man.
Right.
No, I guess I got the impression that he was maybe, I'm going to use the word scheming, but maybe scheming for good.
Okay.
I got the impression that he realized that Bran was in over his head and wanted to accompany him so he would be not completely alone in the crowds. But anyway, that's just how I felt like that conversation went. Maybe that's all me.
I didn't read it like that, but I also have the books at my side. So it's good to have like a first impression, be like, oh, that's interesting, you know?
Yeah.
So I do like the whole like scheming thing where it could throw someone off who's not like read all the books.
Right. Like, scheming's not the right word. It felt more like purposeful. He was like, let me be there with you, so you're not alone in this city that you've never been in before, in this like kind of
which
high
I would say that
emotion.
that's kind of along the lines of him in the books too, that he's purposely trying to get in there.
He does glom onto Rand really quickly. Yeah. But Rand rushes out and ends up meeting up with Matt. You see Steppen and like Lorraine, or what's her name? You just see all the Aes Sedai coming in, like Alana and Logain. And Matt sees Logain staring at them and he starts laughing madly. We also, at this point, I don't know if everyone caught it, but you may spot a certain someone in the streets during this moment. I don't know.
I saw people talking about it on Twitter and I saw the screenshots. I didn't catch all of his appearances actually watching the episode.
I caught the first one. There's one where he walks into an alley, but that was the only one I saw. And then people were like, oh, you see him multiple times. And I was like, didn't see him multiple times, but I saw him the one time. So
I didn't see him on the first watch, but then when I saw people say that, I was like, oh my gosh. And so then I rewatched it and
Lily, do you know this little nugget?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
If you don't want spoilers for this episode and you didn't see the Easter egg, people skip 15 seconds, but you see a little man called Padan Fain, who was in the first episode, who was the peddler.
Yeah.
And he is in Tar Valon for some reason. Matt then asks Rand to kill him if he goes mad and if he's the one who can channel. And Rand tries to reassure him, but he's like, no, I don't care about the Dragon Reborn. I don't care about Aes Sedai. I'd rather be murdered than like go mad. And so Rand agreed, and Matt says he will do the same.
I want to be annoying really quick and say earlier, you said Logain and Matt look at each other and he starts laughing. It was Logain was the one who started laughing.
Yes, Logain starts laughing madly. So that was, thank you for the clarification.
That's all. I was like, Matt didn't start laughing, was my first thought.
I appreciate that. He's not very chill for he's a little bit of a Debbie Downer in this episode. We cut over to Steppen, who's preparing for grieving. He's dressed all in white. He thinks about when his father died and how he often would get drunk and go out looking for fights. That's how he met Karini, who tried to face off with her, and she laughed. And when she was able to take on a warder, she picked him, and he said he felt very lucky about that. They know that the White Tower is a family, and he congratulates everyone on having each other. Lan tries to hint that he should become Alana's warder, and Steppen shuts it down with like, you lose Moraine and then come talk to me. So it's very much you don't know what I'm going through.
I mean, it's a valid point though.
It was 1,000% valid. Like, I'm sorry if you're grieving about like this very special bond and someone's like, so maybe you should get a new one. It's like, let's not have this be the moment you talk about it.
I loved that scene because that was, like I mentioned, one of the very like emotionally vulnerable moments between these men. And also, like, Lan kind of puts his foot in it, but you could tell he was trying. Like, it didn't feel forced. It was like, oh yeah, I could see myself comforting a friend really bad.
Well, and it also kind of shows you the limitations of Aes Sedai with warders, because like his Aes Sedai dies and they're all very like there for him, but they're also all talking about who he should go to next. And you know that that's because like the grief is so big and expansive that they want you to move on to someone else to like help take care of you through the grief process. But that's hard to understand when it's like, no, but I'm grieving. Like, I'm not ready to do this. So you understand why, but it shows how important those relationships are.
I formulated a very bad joke at the beginning of this episode, which was, how does Sean Bean survive a TV show? Cast someone who looks exactly like him, so it's not actually him. The joke got worse as the episode went on.
I'm just saying, it becomes tragic quickly, doesn't it?
That's so amazing. It's a good joke.
Well, on many levels.
Yeah. But our little Sean Bean lookalike does go to a ceremony where he burns the ring into this golden substance, which I wondered if that's where they make all the rings. So it's almost like a metaphor of like, we're all in the wheel of time.
I think that some of the crew have confirmed that, that's intended to be where they make the rings.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I saw it and I was like, oh, that's definitely where they make the rings, because this is all about being reborn. So why wouldn't you do that?
It did throw me off just a little bit how quickly it melted, because I was like, it doesn't,
right?
Gold doesn't melt quite that fast.
But if you can weave very warm fire.
I definitely thought that was lava. I did not realize that was supposed to be gold. So yeah, obviously gold would melt that fast when you toss it into lava.
Yeah. And maybe it's heated by lava. There is a mountain nearby.
I mean, I'm sure there are reasons. I just was a little taken aback.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's true. I guess it's one of those things where it's like Aes Sedai magic is weird. So.
Yeah.
And then we do a smash cut to the White Cloaks, which is one of the scenes that bothered me because they're scrubbing Egwene down and putting her in white. And this is a little bit confusing because in earlier White Cloak episodes, when there was like obviously an Aes Sedai, she was in her regular clothes. So I don't know why.
I feel like it's understandable though, because Valda hasn't actually confirmed that she can channel.
Okay.
So he's not treating her exactly like an Aes Sedai.
Right. But also then to not do the same to Perrin was a little confused, you know, like to leave him in his clothes. I just felt like if you were going to do something like that, you should have done it with both of them.
Well, he knows he's not an Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
I thought it really highlighted like the power dynamics, right? Like I'm a man and I have power over you. And he doesn't need to do that with Perrin necessarily.
And that's fair. Yeah.
I thought it was really effective, a really effective means of showing her what's the word I'm looking for?
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability isn't quite what the exact word I was going for, but it gets there all the same.
I thought he was doing it purely to freak her out so that his interrogation would be more effective. Okay. That's all I thought it was.
It was just a weird choice for me after seeing like him already question someone and then to bring Perrin in his regular clothes. Like I was almost expecting, like I understood where they were showing Egwene doing it because she's obviously, but it was weird to have Perrin come in just his regular traveling clothes for me. But I understand that there are many readings of this. So I don't know, Laura, what were your thoughts?
I guess if you are detaching somebody from like their clothes and like their sense of like self a little bit, it kind of puts them out of place, so that would make more sense, I guess, if you're the one questioning, to like kind of strip someone of what they have and get them out of their element. So I guess that does make sense.
But they strip Egwene down, they scrub her down, they put her in white, and then they tie her up, and Perrin is brought in and tied up to like a thing where he has to be bent over and his back is exposed. And child Valda asks if she can channel. She swears she can't. And he notes she can't be an Aes Sedai because Aes Sedai cannot lie. And
the word I was looking for was violation.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I think it was really effective at showing how he was violating her.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that. I just sometimes I feel icky when like women are violated and men aren't in the same way.
And I think that's why I didn't like it. It just, I think if it would have happened to any of them, I would just be like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah. Well, it made me extremely uncomfortable to watch, but I feel like that was the point because it put the viewer in that same sort of awful situation.
I also like how as a show, they did it without showing, you know, her breasts or anything. I think they did a really good job at showing that vulnerability and that assault while not actually being explicit or creepy in a way that Game of Thrones, for example, was.
Right.
I definitely agree with
there was no like
that.
shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
I do agree that it was more about the power dynamic and less about the sexuality of a moment like that, because there's nothing sexual to a woman in a moment like that. So it was good that they all kind of seemed like this was their job. This is what they're supposed to do to intimidate her and make her feel uncomfortable.
To me, it's something about the purpose of the scene matching the feel. Like it makes me feel uncomfortable because it's supposed to, not because it's trying to be sexy and missed the point. You know what I mean? Like it was doing what it tried to do. And so I feel like even if I didn't enjoy watching it, I'm okay with that.
Right.
Right.
I think, I totally get what everyone's saying. I guess my only thing is like, I wish Perrin had the same the same thing happened to him where he's put in white. Cause it was just a little jarring to see them both in their different systems.
Yeah.
But he thought that it was her warder, but they were brought before him for a reason, he swears, because he is a child of the light. And so he's like, you must touch the one power because I've seen you twice, because coincidences aren't real in these things. She notes he's a man of the light, so he can't hurt her if she swears she can't channel, and she can't channel. And he threatens her, and he's like, how do you know I'm a good man? And she's like, fine, then do it. Like, it's really an Egwene call to action. And he also points to the rings at this time that he's been carrying from 7 sisters that he's tortured. He then cuts at Perrin's back to get her to channel. And as he does this, we see Perrin's eyes flash gold as Valda cuts into him, and he screams. He notes during this, the White Cloaks believe Aes Sedai are witches because they can channel. And this means that they are acting like gods, and there can be only one god of the light. So it means that they're obviously evil. And then he tells her that she will either channel and die, or she won't channel and he will kill Perrin. We cut on over to Nynaeve, and Stepan comes and asks her for her sleeping tea. He has been drinking at this point, and he says he hates sleeping because he doesn't feel the pain, and that's all he has left of Carini. She assures him the pain will never go away. Then Nynaeve explores, much to the chagrin of what Moiraine told her, and she runs into Liandrin. She notes that she escaped from Moiraine, and Liandrin kind of exposes that men, like, she shows that only Reds don't bond with any warders. Because, and Nynaeve asks if it's because they hate men, and Liandrin says not all Reds. And she notes men control a lot of the world and don't take kindly to women who are more powerful. And then she tells Nynaeve to go to the gardens or the libraries, or she like tells her where they are and says explore. Then we cut over to Rand.
I loved that quote with Liandrin because I was like, oh my gosh, that was really good. And the actress is just really,
she's really effective. That. She's a very good Liandrin. They're really bringing her up in this series.
Mm-hmm. I think that scene was also really effective at, like, from one of your criticisms from listening to other episodes of the Wheel of Time series in general, not just the TV show, is that for a society that is supposed to be matriarchal, it's really not very matriarchal. Right. And I think that this scene in particular really shows that, like, the show gets that.
Right. Mm-hmm. I do like, and I like that Liandrin is kind of making a case for the Reds at the beginning of the show. I will say that my sister is watching these shows, and she, for the first couple episodes, she's like, so red equals bad. And then she was talking to me about the 5th episode, and she was like, so does red equal bad ? And like, it actually led her to be a little bit more empathetic. And she like was positing that, like, oh, maybe Nynaeve's going to be a Red because this conversation is interesting, and like, you just don't know. And Nynaeve does like care about who she is as an independent woman. So something like men rule the world and they don't like women who could rule the world is an interesting take on this. So I did think that was really effective. But then we smash cut to Rand with Matt, like, leaning over him, and Loyal comes in and he's like, hey, I just was at the White Tower and I found a friend. And Nynaeve runs in and he's shocked she's alive. And then she looks at Matt and she says, let me see your tongue, which is just a very funny line. But Matt freaks out at her and tells her not to touch him. Rand takes her outside and tells her that he thinks Matt can channel and he's losing himself. She asks him if she's seen him channel, and he's like, no, not yet. But now he's worried about trusting Moiraine after seeing what the Aes Sedai did to the false dragon in the streets. And she says that they don't need the Aes Sedai because they're from 2 rivers, which is a stunning argument on her part. She knows that Egwene must be alive and tells a story about Egwene being sick with breakbone fever, and she was given tea that should have helped her, passed on pretty much. And Egwene says she wasn't ready and she fought through the sickness, and they know that she is unbreakable. We cut back over to Perrin as they're waiting for the questioner to come back, and he asks Egwene to let him die and finally admits that he's the one who hit Layla with an axe and says he deserves to die. Valda comes in and says he will kill Perrin and let him bleed out. And as he keeps cutting him, his eyes continue to turn gold as he screams, Perrin's, not Valda's. She yells that this isn't Perrin's fault and channels to save him with barely a spark. And then Valda is like, okay, good. I get to kill you now, because that's his entire personality. And she looks over at Perrin, and suddenly his bonds are turning like they're sparking and they break. His eye, he like jumps up and his eyes are gold. And Valda calls for the light to protect him because this is something that actually scares Valda. And then Egwene takes Valda's knife and stabs him like the powerhouse she is. They run, her grabbing the rings, and they run out to find the camp overtaken by werewolves. They're afraid, but Perrin assures Egwene that they won't touch.
They were werewolves, or they were?
Oh, so, I'm
werewolves.
sorry, they're wolves.
Just wolves.
Okay.
It's just late. It's after 9:00 here.
They might have been werewolves. That would have been a cool
Just
twist.
wolves.
That would have been like such a spoiler if I'm like, hey, werewolves showed up. No, they're just plain old wolves.
Just good
and they
fluffy
come.
boys.
Just some fluffy, cute boys. So we cut to the tower. Landry comes up to Moraine, noting she hasn't been here for 2 years, and she came back with the prize of Nynaeve, who is hidden away. She knows that with Moraine coming and going, Nynaeve will be a novice and Moraine can't guide her. She hints that she should choose red, and Moraine notes her first channel healed everyone else, marking her for the yellow Aja, who are the healers.
We haven't seen them yet, have we?
I believe that the Aes Sedai who was being tortured by Valda in the second episode was a yellow, but that's off memory, and memory is not perfect, but
I think you're right about that.
but like we haven't met one face to face who like tells us we're healers.
Even in the books,
like,
we don't really see a ton of yellows ever. It's like greens and reds, a lot of.
Yeah, and like a couple of blues sprinkled in for good measure.
Brown.
Yeah. A bottle of red, a bottle of white. So Leandrin notes that Nynaeve likes to follow rules, but Nynaeve likes to follow Nynaeve's rules, and that is something that would be very good for the Reds. And Moraine says Nynaeve actually likes men, so I'm not sure you're going to get far with that one. Everyone loves telling the Red Aja that they hate men in this episode. We cut on over to Steppen, who is doing like a religious ceremony where he's warding off the Forsaken. Lan notices that this is an older practice, and they both note that the Forsaken are people who sold their souls to the Dark One for immortal life, and the last dragon sealed them away. Lan says that he'll stay with him until the morning to help him grieve. Then we cut on over to Alana, who is with Moraine, and they note how painful it is to lose an Aes Sedai. They discuss the series that you can release the bond, a theory that you could potentially release the bond, because Moraine's been thinking about that, and Alana assures her that Lan's not going anywhere. And then she kind of asks Moraine what she's been doing for the past 2 years, and Alana notes that the Amaryllis seat is coming from Caemlyn to answer to Loghain. And she's looking for someone to blame for his attack with his army, and Moraine could be in trouble because they don't have the greatest relationship. And Moraine is the only one who could be potentially a threat to the Amaryllis seat. But Leandrin's strength is growing, and a lot of people are listening to her more and more. So now Moraine has two powerful enemies. But at this time, also Moraine is like, I don't want to be the Amaryllis seat. Like, that's not on my level. And she's like, yeah, but people don't always believe that. She leaves, and Moraine opens up a cabinet, holds a photo of someone looking out. And then we see Steppen and Lan kind of joking around about Steppen being bonded to Alana and going with her two men, Ivan and Maxim. And he's like, I've never been with a man. And Lan's like, that would be two men. So there's a little bit of innuendo there. They're joking.
Lan also says, you're assuming they even want to be with you, which was like a nice jab.
It was great. And then Steppen asks what's going on with Lan and Nynaeve, and Lan says nothing. And then he's like, the first time she channeled it was to save your life with the one power. And Lan is like, yeah, but she hasn't spoken to me since. And Steppen's like, I think she's fallen for you. And Lan goes, well, that sounds like a bad idea. And then when Steppen says that life without love is intolerable, Lan says he can tolerate a lot. And then suddenly it's the next morning, and Lan awakes on the floor. He runs over to the desk and he sees the packet of the sleepy tea. And he goes running for Steppen, but Steppen has died on a dagger in the floor where the warders were. And it ends with Steppen's funeral and Lan saying goodbye. Everyone starts pumping on their chests, and Lan starts doing that. And Moraine does it in solidarity while she cries. And then Lan also cries and screams out into the abyss. And that is the end of the episode. Yes.
Proving that even if you look like Sean Bean, you're still gonna die.
How do you survive at a show? You just don't go to that show and you have someone dressed just like you. Imagine if that's just like Sean Bean's the rest of his career. He's like, I only want to be there if I die suddenly. Like it just has to be there now. I've done it too many times. But what did we think of the overall, like a lot of critiques are about the pacing of the show. What did we think about the pacing of this episode?
Honestly, I really liked it. I thought it was a good episode, but
yeah, I didn't have any problems with the pacing, but I generally haven't really had much problem with the pacing overall, so I'm maybe not the person to listen to.
What about you, Lily?
I mean, I feel like my problem with the pacing in the early episodes is the opposite of what other people have been saying.
Right.
That they probably should have just gone even faster. So maybe I'm not the right person to ask. No, I liked this episode. I think the show has picked up quite a lot, and I'm, enjoying them now, maybe.
I think they're doing a good job.
Tolerably into it, Lily.
I think they're doing a good job of like ratcheting up the stakes each episode. Like this episode felt like the next step in the books and like where we should be at in this moment for an adaptation, where it's like, oh, we haven't seen Egwene and Perrin have too much of a struggle, so it's time to watch them struggle. Right. This is interesting. Like the past episodes, it's more been like Rand and Matt, and then Nynaeve and Moraine. So this was more of the focus on what they're struggling with. But at the same time, you're also seeing a lot of political intrigue with all the other groups and like how they're trying to talk and figure out what's going on, especially with like Nynaeve being paired up with Rand again. It's good to see them back together, but there's still conflict.
Right.
You see, again, I feel like Nynaeve was introduced and then was missing for like 3 episodes.
I guess it's more, again, because they grew up together. It's not because she's
we didn't see her interact with anybody before she disappeared.
I mean, she shoved Egwene off a cliff. So there was that.
I mean, he went to the inn at the beginning.
Yeah, and during the attack, you see her and Egwene try to work together to save people a little bit.
Okay. We get a little bit of that.
Yeah. She also has that conversation with Moraine where they like set up her character as like the youngest wisdom ever before and all that stuff. And she like tells her backstory. But that's a lot of stuff where in the first episode, if you're watching it for the first time, I'm not sure you're like, oh, I'm watching Nynaeve. You're like, who is this character? And then it's like, oh, she's gone.
Also, none of that was interesting.
My sister legitimately thought when Nynaeve like got taken away, she died. So she was like shocked in the 3rd episode when she showed up.
I feel like all of that was interesting if you know Nynaeve as a character already, and if you know something of her journey through the books. Whereas if you're just being introduced, you're like, I don't care about this backstory.
Exactly.
I don't think I cared about the show until the beginning of the 3rd episode when she is reintroduced, taking down the Beast Man in the cave.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, there's something for me here.
Well, that's because there's not a lot of like action, that characters aren't active a lot in the first 2 episodes. Like they're doing stuff.
Yeah, they do lots of stuff. It's just nothing I care about.
But it's not like they're not active characters other than like Rand screaming at Moraine once. Like it's mostly Moraine being like, we have to do this. And so Rand's like, okay, we have to do that. So everyone follow along. So I do think that that's the struggle of the first couple episodes. But you're right. In the 3rd episode, it really hits its stride finally. But yeah, I thought this was overall a very good episode. Like I only had that one nitpick about like Perrin and Egwene's clothing.
I think my favorite part of the episode was like all of the stuff involving Stepin and his grieving process, because I think that's something that, you guys mentioned earlier that we don't get a ton about warders and their stories in the books. And I think in the show, they're doing a really good job of highlighting how close that Aes Sedai warder bond is and how interconnected all of these people are in terms of their emotions and what's going on with them. And so I thought that whole funeral and all of the things around Stepin, it was just like perfect. I really liked it.
I think that's really good. And it also lets you in on the window of like because Moraine for so far, all she cares about is like finding the Dragon Reborn and doing all this stuff. But when they're traveling into Tarvalon, she's like, I only care about my horse and you, Lan. And I'm like, well, you kind of see why that's true after you see the warder bonds. But I also loved the Tuatha in this episode, like watching them be pacifists and like take down the White Cloaks. And it shows that like you can be actively nonviolent and trying to stop other people from being violent.
Did they, though?
Except we know that
All
Mrs.
they
Bates
did-
is violent.
All they
She was
did was
Mrs. Bates
get
in
beat
that
up,
movie.
and then they got kidnapped anyway. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
really sure what that was supposed to accomplish. Or I know what it was supposed to accomplish,
Right.
but I would not argue that it did.
That's true. But I guess it's more the like, it's you're right. It was futile in the end, but they did try. You know, it's one of those things where you can try even if you know you're going to fail.
Right.
And the important part was that they cared for those young adults, I guess is what you're supposed to call them when they're like this age, but like they wanted to protect them as much as they could.
I mean, I'm not trying to argue that scene wasn't great, because I also loved it, but it was more of a like, they're willing to do whatever they can, even when they know that what they can do isn't going to fix it. Right. But instead of saying, well, we can't help, so there you go, like, congratulations, you got them, they still put themselves in danger, which was extremely sweet.
Right.
I agree. I really liked them in this episode and the episode previous. They were amazing.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of like their character.
And like her phrase of you can hide light under a basket, but if you crush a leaf, it just becomes a part of the earth and it starts over again. Like they're very philosophical, and I like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So
who are your favorite characters so far?
I mean, it's got to be Nynaeve.
My queen.
What about you, Lily?
I mean, absolutely. I liked Lan, and then Nynaeve turned out to not be dead. So that was great.
I do feel like Nynaeve is just the star of the show so far.
Yeah. She's been killing it. I mean, she's just been fantastic.
That actor, like, they just won out with her. I just don't know how they made her so because in the first book she drove me crazy, and I love her in the TV series. So
it's like you're not the only person I've heard say that.
She's a hard character to love. She's too like, I feel like this show has effectively done what Robert Jordan wanted to do with Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Because it shows a person who is stubborn but competent and fighting for her voice. But in the books, it feels like everyone always respects her voice anyway, and she's just screaming at them for no reason. So unless you're reading into what Robert Jordan intended, you're missing out on a lot of that. And like, I have had people in my life who acted like that, and so I had a very adverse reaction to it. But in the this TV show has done so well at fixing a lot of the issues I had with the first novel. Like, it's better pacing. The characters have more stakes to that. Like, watching Matt crumble in this episode is heartbreaking, because you just, and he's sitting there like, did I just kill a family? What's going on? What's wrong with me? And that felt so much more grounded because of what we know about his background and everything. So I would say Matt is also one of my favorites of the season.
Agreed.
But what did you?
I really dislike Matt in the first couple of books, and even though I think that Matt in the show is better, he still frustrates me.
How so?
I just I find his mood swings and his refusal to let anyone know that something is wrong to be really frustrating and really unenjoyable to watch or read. And there's a whole lot of that. We saw a little bit of that in this episode, and so I was like, Matt, I get where you're coming from. I like you more than I did in the first couple of books. But I actually stopped reading the series because of Matt.
Oh, wow.
I tried to read Wheel of Time about 10 years ago, and I got through, I think, 2.5 books, and I put it down because of Matt. Like, I just found him so unpleasant to read about.
We definitely hated him for quite a few books.
Yeah.
We were right there with you. I think I interpreted it a little bit differently in this episode, because when he asks if he killed the family, I assumed he and Rand have been talking about the fact that he could potentially channel. And so I see it more as him fighting with that fear. And I found that very interesting, which is very different.
I liked that. But like his refusal or his yelling at Nynaeve when she asked to see his tongue, I was like, oh, this is the Matt that I don't like.
Or like in the third episode where they're at that inn and Matt's like, I'm not gonna help you. I'm going off. You can chop all this wood by yourself.
That's
the kind of jerk move.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I don't want to watch.
Yeah, I guess it's because I don't blame him. I blame what he's going through. Like I see him as a very
it's not his fault.
Right. And so I think it works better for me and this series because we don't know what's going on with him up until this point. Right. Like it's all kind of a big mystery.
I would possibly like him more if I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I've just been like, I'm definitely on the band of like, they think it's this, they've been talking about it. I kind of get where if you thought you were going crazy, you'd be acting this and you're acting this way. You kind of like have this moment of regret afterwards where it's like, I don't know what's going on.
They're doing a much better job in the show. Agreed, Hannah. I definitely get that frustration with Matt. Yeah. And like, I don't blame you for being like so frustrated with him. Like I hated him in the first few books. Like, what is wrong with this character? He's so annoying. He whines all the time. And so I definitely get that frustration.
And Hannah, to your point, I agree that they're doing him very well in the show. I just am bringing baggage to it that's not his fault.
I mean, I have baggage with Nynaeve, so we all have baggage. I totally get that. Lily, you do know who the Dragon Reborn is, don't you? Like in the book series type thing.
I know I've been told it, but
you have no idea.
I feel like I could make a pretty good guess, but I'm not like, oh yeah, I know exactly who that is.
Well, tell us your guess, and if it's too good, we'll just take it out.
Well, I know it's not Perrin.
Okay.
Incorrect. It is Perrin.
Right.
So Lily, what I'm getting from this is you're not really into like high fantasy, like people walking around and talking politics with each other.
Politics is really not my jam at all. I really enjoy character development, which I think is why the Warders are interesting to me. Opposite of what everyone just said in this conversation, don't really care about the Aes Sedai Warder thing. Great, they magically bonded. Who gives a shit? Like anyone can do that. But the Warders are like people who have been thrown in this situation together and are struggling through together and forming friendships and relationships in that way. And that's very interesting to me.
I love that take. I think that's really nice. I did feel very sad about Steppet. My sister was convinced he was going to become Nynaeve's warder when Nynaeve became an Aes Sedai, and she was very disappointed.
I felt that during that episode as well. I thought that was maybe going to happen, but they kind of took that rug out from under us pretty quick.
Which I think is part of the point. They're having them interact together. Yeah. I do have a little bit of like Game of Thrones whiplash sometimes where like he went into Nynaeve's room and I'm like, should I be scared right now? And then I'm like, it's not that kind of show. It's not that kind of show. Like, no, it was more like all the sexual assault in Game of Thrones has me worried every time I see a man and a woman in a room together.
Interesting. I did think he was going to hit on her, but I thought it was just going to be, a genuine overture.
Right. I was just worried with like the alcohol and all that stuff. Like it's one of those things where you're unlearning a very specific type of show.
Well, I mean, I did get that vibe from the scene, but I definitely came at it from the angle of he's grieving and trying to make a human connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have any final thought? Anything we like haven't talked about with the episode or the series you guys want to bring to the table?
I hate that awful light cult so much. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not supposed to like them. I get the impression.
Awful in the books too.
Yeah. They're the fascists of the books, just so you know. Yeah.
Lily, they're the heroes and you're supposed to like them.
If you
actually that guy is the Dragon Reborn.
I would have to believe you.
Child Valda.
Oh, I think it's so interesting that the Aes Sedai are sisters, but they are children. That's just like a situation. Anyway,
they're different naming situations.
Yeah, they're not brothers, they're children. Anyway, that wasn't my point.
Well, that's because they like the Aes Sedai are sisters who are supposed to be like together, and it's all about like motherhood and sisters like beneath her and serving her. And the children of the light are supposed to serve one God, and so they are his children, kind of thing.
Well, sisters are also all children of the mother.
Yes. Like, so that, yeah, but they would not claim themselves. I'm sure they call each other brother in the book series at some point in time, but don't quote me on that.
That's not why I hate them, though. I mean, they're obviously supposed to be stressful, but that flavor of religious fervor is just so unfun to me that even when they're bad guys, I'm just like,
it's a hard watch. They're hard to watch when he's like spouting off their religious beliefs, and like the whole either you channel and you die, or you don't channel and he dies. That's like very much the witch trials of like, we're gonna push you out into sea, and if you drown, you weren't a witch, but you will be dead. So
you're a woman with some kind of agency, and that's enough for you to die one reason or the other. I have to say, I did start watching this show with my parents, and the very first thing my daddy said was, this guy wrote how many thousands of pages about men versus women? Oh no.
That's an amazing take, and I love it.
And so I was like, I definitely didn't give this show a fair chance. Let's also throw that out there.
I mean, you've watched 5 episodes of it, so isn't that a fair chance? Like,
and it did eventually bring me around. It's not going to be something I rewatch every year, like Lord of the Rings, but I'll watch it all once and say I did.
But Sarah, it sounds like your experience is much more positive, that you're very much enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it. I'm happy to watch it. And I will continue watching it with pleasure, unless things go really off the rails, but I don't, from what I've seen thus far, I don't imagine that it will.
It's very exciting because like ours, it drops at like 6 p.m. at night, but with the time difference, yours drops at like 4 p.m. on Thursday, right? Yeah. That's a nice after, like, oh, I just got home. I guess I'm turning on Wheel of Time. That's great.
Yeah, it is. And Thursday conveniently is the one night that I generally have no other kind of social obligations. So
that's good.
I can actually enjoy it. Yeah.
It has been fun watching it week to week, like come out. I am enjoying this experience a lot by seeing everything.
I like a lot of it and I hate it
on streaming because like we're so used to like, oh yay, the new season of Stranger Things is out. I'll watch all of it in one night. And so I kind of like being back to like only get one episode per week. You have to wait. It's kind of nice.
It's a double-edged sword because you can't watch it all, but it is nice to like have each episode be its own thing. Like rewatching episode 5, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember everything that happened in this episode because I watched it sitting down, and the first 3 definitely all blurred together because I watched them all right in a row.
I watched episode 5 drunk at 1 a.m. the first time. I watched it again sober. But so I did not remember things the first time I watched it.
I mean, episode 5 drunk at 1 a.m. sounds like a wonderful time, but
that sounds like the worst time. That's so bad.
I can't stay up past I can barely stay up past midnight most nights, so I'm impressed you're like 1 a.m. Let me turn this on.
It was only because I didn't want to go on Twitter and see spoilers the next morning.
Fair.
But then you didn't remember any of it.
I mean, yeah, I probably could have just waited until that's not true. I remembered most of it. There were a couple of little details that when I watched again, I was like, oh, this is I don't remember this. But for the most part, I actually did have a pretty good grasp on what was going on.
Lily, you may enjoy it more if you have a cocktail or 2 right before you turn it on.
Why is it 1 a.m.?
I didn't pick the time for a reason, but Laura's definitely pushing the 1 a.m. So.
Hey, so Perrin summoned those wolves, right? They weren't just supremely convenient.
Did he?
We'll never know.
If he didn't, that's awful. Like, talk about a Deus Ex Machina. He has to have summoned them.
Yeah.
It's just like the movie The Birds. The wolves are just wolves.
Oh my goodness.
The wolves were a little silly to me. In general, I liked the scene, but I thought that the White Cloaks were kind of over-exaggeratedly killed,
scared of
by
huskies.
Them. Like, yeah.
Are you telling me they were a coincidence? Don't do this to me.
We're gonna leave you hanging until you watch the show, Lily. We don't give spoilers to future episodes. We haven't even announced who the Dragon Reborn is on this episode.
We did. It's that white cloak.
It's the white cloak. I did think the Huskies were very silly. And like when the one dog comes up to them and they're like so scared, I'm like, wolves are scary, but this is very dramatic. For people
I think
who
at times
weapons.
they do have real wolves, but then when they like show them running from behind, I'm like, that's definitely a husky. Like, there's no way. Like,
it's just you see them like bowl over a white cloak, and it's so over the top.
Yeah,
and there's like blood. I was like, okay, this is
this
is a little
out,
extreme. Yeah.
Again, it feels weird to like. It felt like they just didn't have enough of the Huskies on set on that day.
Yeah,
because like you have one wolf like chasing after three guys, and it's like you guys have weapons. Like it's not like you're not the people of the leaf. You have weapons. You do fight. Like try to fight the wolves, but it's like the wolves snuck into the camp and like surprised them somehow.
I kind of wish too that they would have went with like bigger type wolves, rather than these like smaller ones. I wish they would have went with like dire wolf type size things. That
would have been better. I feel like in the books when they describe like wolves attacking, it's a little bit more fun to watch. Well, I agree with you.
I thought it was the Tinker's dogs because we saw the Tinker's dogs committing violence at the beginning.
Yeah, and it was like big Akitas though. Like
what a great
Henry
loophole.
Cavill has.
Yeah. But what a great loophole. They can't commit violence, but dogs naturally commit violence, so that's okay. So if their dogs happen to go attack their enemies, they can't help it.
I'm kind of on board with that reading, and I'm a little disappointed that they showed the dogs at the beginning if they were just going to show Huskies later on, like Husky wolves. That's a good read.
Like that would have been, and I was like, they came to save them. Oh no, it was just a coincidence.
You've got me thinking now.
I just want more Tinkers, that's all.
Yeah, an episode dedicated to them would be cool.
That would be very cool. I definitely liked their traveling with Egwene and Perrin, and like I feel that was the only thing I was like, oh, I wish we had seen more, because like you just know that they traveled for a month together and liked it.
Right.
Like, but well, if that's everyone's final thoughts, anything else? Any other criticisms? Okay, well, I guess we should wrap up. Can you let everyone know where they can find you on all the social platforms?
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at fictionfanspod, and you can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com if you want to tell Lily whether or not the wolves were there just as a Deus Ex Machina.
Yes, definitely reach out to them. And I mean, I'm sure that most people who listen to our show definitely listen to you guys. I'm pretty sure the people who listen to our show and then listen to yours is a direct circle of overlapping. But if you haven't, you should definitely listen to them. They're some of our favorite podcasts of the week. We always remind you guys that you guys are goat approved because the goats love to listen to you.
Our favorite approval.
The only important
listen
one.
When I'm doing chores.
The goats have rated you 5 stars on Apple Pod, and everyone else should too. And you guys know where to find us. We want to thank you guys so much for coming on to talk about episode 5. Lily, for bringing us your new nuanced ideas about the show.
I have to say, I mean, watching the whole show was worth it just to hang out with you guys. So
I love hanging out with you guys. And Sarah, thank you so much because you see the show in a very different way than I do. And I appreciate all your views because I always think that that's the most interesting thing to talk about if people just sit around agreeing all the time.
I mean, that's what I say about our podcast is that it's only fun because Lily and I argue.
But I really liked your takes on this, and it'll make me see the episode a little bit better in some parts. You gave me better readings on some things, so I appreciate it. And if you guys are interested, Fiction Fans is going to be on our last episode in December. We are going to be reading one of Lauren, my favorite childhood series books, one of the Christmas specials of the Heartland series. So if you guys are interested, by Lauren Brooke, we are so sorry we're making you guys do this, but it should be a fun conversation.
I am not sorry.
Good childhood books we all grew up with, where you guys just happen to read one that you guys have never read before, and perhaps watch episodes on the TV that's on Netflix. But you guys should join us then. And tune in tomorrow when we are covering, I can't remember because it's too many episodes ahead, but something in the Wheel of Time.
I think we will be covering the men of Crossroads of Twilight.
Yes, we will be covering the men of Crossroads of Twilight. Oh, no, it's the women of Crossroads.
The women.
It's the women of Crossroads. We will be covering the women of Crossroads of Twilight, and we apologize.
Hopefully it's not a major snooze fest for you
because it's just going to be us screaming into the podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.